Shall we give it another few minutes? Just, I think there's still people coming over the last Thank you very much for coming. My name is Fabio Gigi. I am the chair of the Japan Research Center here at SOAS, and it's a great honor, but more so a pleasure, to be welcoming you here for this event. We celebrate the work of a larger-than-life figure in the life of SOAS, but also in the life of the Japan Research Center. Although David Hughes had already retired when I joined in 2013, you could still occasionally hear Japanese melodies mysteriously emerging from some training room. And it was a wonderful feeling. I came back from Japan. I was a bit homesick, to be honest. I was working long hours. And occasionally, if you walk along the corridors, you can hear a few notes of minyo, a few notes of shamisen. And that was always made me feel at home. So it's a great honor to have you all here, and I'll hand you over to the chair for today, Dr. Kiku Dei. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Fabio, and to the Japan Research Center. And I also want to say thank you to Richard and to the music department. And hello, everybody, welcome. I've got the honor of being the MC today, and that's just because I'm the only editor who's here. But the other editors, Matt Gillen and Patrick Huang, they are in Japan and Canada, so they obviously couldn't be here. So I just want to say that the idea for the book started before David turned 70, but at the time it was really hard to find a publisher for a Festschrift, so we kind of gave up. And then 5 years later, I was sitting literally in front of my computer thinking, David is turning 75 in a couple of years, or a year or something like that. And isn't it time to, poke a little bit on the editors of the Festschrift? And then literally while I was sitting there thinking about it, Patrick Huang, who was a master student here at SOAS, sent me a message saying, shouldn't we do a Festschrift for David? So I thought, okay, with this coincidence, better just email them. And Patrick and I joined the editorial team, and the rest is history. So here we are, and it's here. It's also the first time I see it. So I'm very glad to be here to celebrate David and the book in his honor. So I just want to say a few things about David, and about how significant he has been for people like me, students of SOAS, and also colleagues, I suppose. And, since David joined the music department here in '87, when Richard Wittes was, until then, only the only full-time music scholar here, then they reached the critical mass of 2 full-time scholars, and a music degree was created, and David was also very instrumental, I hear, in creation of performance program here at SOAS, which I personally was very happy about. David has also been instrumental in the launch of British Journal of Ethnomusicology, today's Ethnomusicology Forum. So I also hear rumors about the music department's laser copy machine was used to print out the master of the journal and then sent to the publisher. But these kind of things are things that we already know, I mean, great achievements of David. So I rather want to talk about, why it's been so important for some of us, or for many of us, to make this Festschrift, So David was, and still is, very dedicated to music, performance, and indeed to SOAS, and to students, and to ethnomusicology and language, And so a human being can often be defined and redefined in a spur of a moment. And many things have changed since David David retired from SOAS. But still, what struck us many of us about David, or for us who know him well, is that, among other things, long before Black Lives Matter happened, David was very supportive and very inclusive to everyone, no matter of color, background, or life situation. And this inclusiveness, coupled with high academic standard and a burning passion for performance, was felt by many students as being unique and a big inspiration. And David always went out of his way to make everybody kind of included in a group setting, or try to, make everybody speak. Okay, we all know that David also liked to tell his own stories, maybe more than once or twice, But if he felt that someone hadn't come forward and had space, he always made sure to ask questions, so these, persons will have a presence in that crowd. And that was whether it was a lecture or a private setting. And his lectures were also very human, to the point I would say in Japanese, ningen kusai, which kind of means stinking or reeking of humanness or human. He could suddenly burst out crying during a lecture when he remembered the poor girl that he met in a Shinkansen bullet train, who was a Burakumin outcast, who had her marriage turned down because the in-laws to become had found out she was a Burakumin. Or in the middle of a concert for earthquake victims, because he thought of their horrible situation. So this kind of level of empathy that he showed in context of lectures, concert, public seminars was very striking, and also a big inspiration, or something that the world really needs today. And also you could say that, even David retired 14 years ago, it's become more and more important, these kind of things like empathy. So David had always been an inspiration, full of energy, a bit chaotic, but very warm, and we loved him for that. Thank you, David, for your work, passion, and personality. And it was well worth doing all the work for the Festschrift in your honor. So I just also want to explain a little bit about the cover of the book. We actually really wanted, it was especially me who was really looking for a nice, new, not seen before, old picture of folk musicians, but folk musicians were not really worth depicting, right? But we found this. There are two Komuso monks, so they're shakuhachi playing monks, kind of symbols that there are two shakuhachi chapters in this book. Surprise, surprise, I'm one of them. And then there's an ox. And there's a reason for this ox, and I'm sure most of you already have guessed, but let's hear this. Okay?
Coming down. This song, Nambuusho Yuta, it's one of the first I learned. I recorded it 42 years ago on an LP in Japan, and I still remember the lyrics pretty much. But we, as a group, performed this a lot at various events, and what we have added, I forget whose idea this was, it wasn't mine, but where are the oxen? And so now a lot of our members, get on stage we've got shakuhachi, singer, and then we need some actual oxen around. And in the West, our cattle, if you're a cowboy, go moo. What do they do in Japan? So they're up on stage going moo and threatening me with their horns. This is a song that used to be sung while you're leading cattle from the mountains and up in northeast Japan down to the seacoast with things on their backs to sell. Then you load up with stuff from the sea and go back the other way. Thank you, Keith. Inaka naredo mo sae namu no kuni wa yo tasukete 西も東も金の山こら山菜もうたくさんだよ。もう一つの歌詞。OK。今度来るときさえ持ってきておくれよ奥の深山のさえ助けてないの葉をこら山菜以上でございます。どうもどうもどうも。So there we go.
Although I did teach kids and that made my voice so much louder, but if you can get it to work, it will be nice. It's on. Good. So I am going to introduce you to Amanda Vilpastor, who is one of the authors in the book, and also a student here from SOAS, PhD from SOAS. She's right now at Cardiff University, as you can read. And she is in Nigeria at the moment, and she promised to send a video, but she didn't manage to upload it. So therefore, she's sent a statement that I am going to read if I can. So, where does it start? Okay, sorry I can't be there to join the celebration of David's Festschrift. I'm in Nigeria on a writing retreat, but I am there in spirit. I expect I'll be missing yet another rendition of the Iwate cow song, an aspect of our training most of us share. I'd like to offer some reflections and memories about working with David while doing my master's and PhD at SOAS. The first time I saw David was in 1996. He rushed into the lecture room a tad late, as was often the case, eating a chocolate bar. After taking his seat, he welcomed us and told us to call him David rather than Dr. Hughes. My kind of guy, I thought. He opened our first master's ethnomusicology lecture by saying something like, if you're thinking about getting a job in ethnomusicology, there aren't any. Definitely my kind of guy. How do I scroll? Roller. So, okay. Oh, it went. Okay, now I think I get it. Yes. So, if you're saying, yeah, there aren't any. Definitely my kind of guy. You should have told me too. I thought. He then went on to name a handful of occupied posts in the UK and said that he didn't know of any other jobs opening up. At that point, I wasn't aspiring to work in academia, so rather than being discouraged by what he said he was telling us, I liked that David told us exactly how it was. I can honestly say that I loved every lecture. David had a way of cutting to the chase and pulling out the main points of complex readings in a way that was easy to understand. It wasn't until a couple of years later that I found out that by accident that we had some common research interest when I found out that David was also a drum language and vocabulary nerd. I brought him in to the 11th hour to supervise my master thesis researching surrogate speech in Cuban drumming. I sent David a full draft of my dissertation, then met with him to talk through the material. My manuscript was covered in red ink, including copious corrections, the inserting of a few dozen commas, and repeated requests for musical example. I'd never seen anything like that, and I still haven't found another scholar who spends so much time and offers so much detail. But following what David modeled, I have become like him, this time and detail along with more of few comments. Is that what I offer to my students and also to the editors? I initially felt crestfallen when I glanced at the density of David red markings. I feared that my draft was a mess until I got home and began to get inside of his thinking. Following David's guidance, I earned a distinction for my MMus. We started meeting to co-write an article emerging from the dissertation. But when I told David I had too much material to rein into an article, he encouraged me to apply for a HRC PhD scholarship. And on the back of his recommendation letter, which somehow fell into my hands years later, I was successful. Yeah? Okay, that's what it says. Oh, sorry. I was in a house not very far from here in Oshombo when someone came to tell me that they received a telephone call to say that I got the award. I feel that I owe a good deal of my professional success to David's early encouragement, intellectual input, and strong recommendation letter. When I was invited to contribute to David's Festschrift, it felt like an opportunity to give something back. My chapter is reworking of the master dissertation that David helped to shape, but it is also a display of the thinking and rigor that I learned from him. My chapter feels like the completion of a long cycle that we began together in 1996. Mine is just one of the many careers David has launched, but more importantly, as I moved around the world and meet scholars who know him, as well as the accolades for his scholarship. Most people say something like, he's a nice man. Congratulations, David. This Festschrift is an offering to your monumental intellectual legacy. Thank you.
I have to make one brief comment. This is lovely that she said all this, but I'm going to say this at the end when I finally get to make like a 2-minute talk. A lot of us scholars at SOAS, many of whom are here now, even the retired ones, have been so wonderful. And, once you've retired, a lot of you are going to deserve a Festschrift. One previous ethno scholar at SOAS also has a Festschrift in his name, and I think there will be more. I just hope we can manage that. I don't want to be too selfish and say, I'm the guy who gets a Festschrift. But I'm so delighted and flattered and surprised, Shut up for now, David. Okay.
Well, sorry for my poor reading. I mean, it just arrived today. So I would like to call up San, Hui San Tan. she would like to address.
Great, thank you. Well, a lot has already been said, but I would like to say a few words as well. So exactly 30 years ago, I first came to SOAS after I've just completed my master's at City University, a master's in music performance. So I wanted to change direction and wanted to find out more about my own Chinese heritage, having come from Singapore and been exposed to a lot of Chinese and all kinds of Malay Indian music. So I made a trip to SOAS in 1992 to come and see whether I could pursue my PhD here at SOAS. And at that time, SOAS Music was only a center, housed in a rather poky room in the basement, which was later the refectory, actually. So, and there were only two people at that time, Richard and David, who were the only people there. And I remember Richard telling me, "Oh, you want to do Chinese music? And well, we don't have anybody doing any Chinese music, but David is a Japanese expert. Maybe you go and talk to him." And that was how I spoke to David, and he gave me a lot of his time, and we spoke at length. And then the next year, in 1993, I then began my master's in ethnomusicology. I was not allowed to start my PhD straight away. And that year, Rachel Harris, myself, and Cheng Yu became the first three master students pursuing Chinese music studies, and we went on to complete our respective, PhD research. And some of you might contest the historical timeline. I've had Barley, saying that no, I was here as well, and yeah, but you were here the year after. So I remember very clearly that it was definitely myself, Rachel, and Cheng Yu, and then after that it became a music department, and we had more people. We had Keith joining from the Center of Korean Studies. We have Lucy, who had just and come from the African department, etc. And so since then, David has been my supervisor. And I used to dread giving him my writings because he would scrutinize every single word down to the punctuation, the commas, and so things would come back completely red, in red ink. And so I was like, oh my God, shouldn't have done this.
Wait a second. My degree at Yale was in linguistics. Okay, I had to be picky.
Right, yes. And so, but yeah, he has been very, very supportive throughout, and I've really benefited so much from his care and attention and the time that he has given me to support me. And when I, in 2001, just before I was about to complete my PhD thesis, I was given a one-year post at University of Durham. And both he and Gina took me in because Gina was a lecturer at University of Durham. So they took me in as a lodger in their Durham home. And they mentored me through my first job. I was completely petrified. I haven't even finished my PhD. So throughout my teaching career, he has been there not only as a mentor, but also a friend. And then during my time as a Jiang Jingguo Foundation postdoctoral fellow, when I came back to SOAS for that in 2002, I shared an office with David, who was then the head of the music department. I saw how much there were constant streams of students coming in and out, and he never turned anybody away. He was always, talking to them, no matter whether it was, whether it was problems here with their studies or even their personal problems. He always had time for students, but also, for his colleagues, because I remember him helping Lucy, who was at that time finishing her PhD thesis, helping Lucy to print the thesis for the final submission. If anybody has, tried to, has completed a PhD and tried to print a 300-page thesis, you would know how horrifying that job is. And he was running around, trying to get all of that sorted out for Lucy. So And then I recall that in 1995, David, Richard Wides, and others who were chairing the meeting, because ethnomusicology at that time, we were part of the International Council for Traditional Music UK chapter. And in 1995, I remember that meeting that David and Richard and the others were chairing, which led to the change of the name of ICTM UK, ICTMUC, to the British Forum for Ethnomusicology, which David nicknamed Buffy. And for the journal, Budgie, British Journal of Ethnomusicology. And as Kiku has already mentioned, he was always, he's always larger than life, and he's the life and soul of parties, and he always made sure that everybody had a chance to perform and encouraged everybody to, perform at either, music department parties or conferences, and he was always there to organize the performances. And those of us, of course, who have heard his lectures, would never forget the humor he injects, and sometimes the silliness, which I can't even do. If you have that acoustic mnemonic lecture, he would be doing his R-O-E-O, and knocking on his head, and etc. and all that. And so, and of course, who could forget his Uncle Dave's guide to grammar,
Which is in the book.
Semicolon, punctuation, colon, and spelling. Nor can we forget, the way that he, as Kiku mentioned, and his empathy, and having been so touched by the fact that a 4-year-old Japanese girl was learning the minyo at a time when not many young people were learning, and giving a paper at a conference and welling up, and getting choked up. So we feel his intense passion for the tradition and his research. So I feel very honored, and I'm very thankful to David, and I'm very honored to have the opportunity to contribute a chapter to David's 70th birthday Festschrift. So thank you very much, David, and for having such a huge influence in my academic life, and also being a mentor and a lifelong friend.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, San. That was very nice. I would like to call up the Minyo group. So we're going to have a little bit of Minyo performance, led by Otis and also George, who is a PhD student at the moment. So we will have Ainu songs, because George's PhD is on Ainu music.
I think you all have heard of the Ainu, but in case you don't know, Ainu, so I'll tell you. The northern Japan is where the Ainu people lived there before the so-called modern Japanese moved in from other directions. And they're still there, and they have their own culture, their own language, and their own wonderful music. And George, who's done a lot of traditional Japanese music with us, not Ainu, she is also just adding so much to this world of ours now. And so here we go. That's enough, yeah. Get out of the way.
Can we take this singing?
Okay, yeah. No, I'm not leaving.
No, but you have to take me everywhere.
This is a wonderful song from the north of Japan, Hokkaido and that region, and it is called Pirika, beautiful in the Ainu traditional sort of language, and we'll do it as a round and then as a canon also, which is really fantastic. Hope you enjoy. Pirika, pirika, tanto siri pirika, inang kuru pirika, numke kusune, numke kusune. Pirika, pirika, tanto siri pirika, inang kuru pirika, numke kusune, numke kusune. Pirika, Inau Suri Pirika, Nunke Kuru Pirika, Nunke Kusune. Pirika, Pirika, Tanto Suri Pirika, Inau Suri Pirika, Nunke Kuru Pirika, Nunke Kusune. Nunke Kusune.
We're going to do the other one now too, yeah.
We are. Yep, so the second one we're going to sing is Ita Sankata, which is also going to be sung, we'll sing it together to start with and then in a round. And yep, it's about these lacquerware barrels, the shintoko, shaking on the altars.
Ita Sankata ni onku to shintoko, heretun, heretun chai. Ita Sankata ni onku to shintoko, heretun, heretun chai. Ita Sankata ni onku to shintoko, heretun, heretun chai. Ita Sankata ni onku to shintoko, heretun, heretun chai.
We're going to have, she is going to finish off a wonderful PhD thesis that will give us all more sense of the Ainu world.
No pressure.
So keep your eyes on this process, George. Okay, shut up, David.
Thank you very much to the Minyo group. SOAS Minyo group has been going on for quite a long time. I was also included in the group that kind of wanted to make a shakuhachi group, and then we invited Minyo in, and the shakuhachi group died out while Minyo went strong because of David, of course.
And you.
So, well, not so much. Next is a video speech from Kaneshiro Atsumi.
Dr. Hughes, hello. How are you? I'm getting older and staying up late is taking a toll on my body. I have another class tomorrow, so I am sorry, but I will greet you with a video recording. Dr. Hughes, thank you very much for your help during my training at SOAS. I stayed in England for less than half a year, but it was a valuable experience for me as I learned a great deal. There were times when I got sick, but Gina also helped me. I'd like to express my heartfelt thanks to her. In addition, the many papers that Dr. Hughes has written have been a great learning experience, not only for me, but also for many of my colleagues who are studying Japanese folk songs. The writing have been indispensable teaching materials in my class for over 30 years. Now, I am very honored to be able to participate in this Festschrift. This time, I thought it would be a good opportunity to get English-speaking researchers interested in Okinawan classical music So I wrote an overview of Kumi Odori. I would also like to thank Matt for correcting my messed up English. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Dr. Hughes for giving me this wonderful opportunity and to the production staff of this Festschrift. Well, I retired from the Okinawa University of the Arts and now work at the Tokyo College of Music. Of course, I continue my research and cultural activities in Okinawa. I have a family there. So I traveled between Tokyo and Okinawa every week. I don't know how many more years I will be able to continue, but I will do my best to contribute to folk music research as much as possible and to compete with Dr. Hughes. By the way, Dr. Hughes, do you remember my son Tadashi? We were guided to the castle of Harry Potter together. He got married and recently had a child. First grandchild for me, time flies. Now I began to think about what to entrust to the next generation, both in my personal life and in my research life. So I wrote a new book. I would like to send a copy to Dr. Hughes. So please tell me the address to send it to. Lastly, I would like to add Dr. Hughes' own writings to my future work so that they can be passed on to the next generation of folk music researchers in Japan. Thank you for inviting me here today. I hope David and Gina continue to live healthy and fulfilling lives. I wish everyone here today good health. Thank you. ありがとうございます。
Now we're gonna move on to the Sanshinkai, which is a group that played Okinawa music here for many, many years. It was founded by the first editor of the book, Matt Gillen, and it still continues strong. So here you go, Sanshinkai. The Okinawa music is, of course, part of Japan's musical scene, but it's also very different from the rest of mainland Japan's music you will hear. Many of you already know.
Here we go. Iya. Iya sa sa. Here we go. 感謝目の浜にする我が雪金のへする我が雪金のへ感謝ましましティアンがそいそいティアンがやくしくやささはいやするるはやあらんやまとみじゅんのやんきんのへやまとみじゅんのやんきんのへなんちゃましましティアンがそいそいティアンがやくしくやささはいはアピカやウリトゥイガンバやカミティウリウイガヘイアンワやカミティウリウイガヘイなんちゃましましティアンがそいそいティアンがやくしくウリウリティの後のアンワやユヌチュラサヘアンガやユヌチュ
ささへいなんちゃましましティアンがそいそいティアンがやくしくやささりちゃりちゃやかいうくりてしまんさへくいくあるやる
Yeah, good. Thank you. And we did have a couple of actual Okinawans in our group too, which is nice, and a Greek guy. So we're reaching around. Not a lot to say about that, except you can read maths now. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you to Sanshin Kai and everybody. The next person we are going to present is Matt Gillen, who is the first editor of the book. So, as I said before, he is in Japan, and it's in the middle of the night, and he's very busy at the moment. So he have sent us a video recording.
Hi, David. Sorry I can't be with you today. I just wanted to say congratulations on the Festschrift and many, many thanks for everything you've done for me and everybody else over all these years. I've got the Festschrift here. I think it turned out very nicely in the end. It seems quite a long time since we started this project, at least 6 years ago when we did the event at the BFE conference. We got there in the end. Many thanks to all the people who contributed chapters to it. It was nice to catch up with people I hadn't seen for a long time. And a few people who I hadn't really met at all. So it's been fun. It's great also to have Uncle Dave's guide to grammar, punctuation and spelling in print for eternity. And I was quite happy we managed to get the cow and a shakuhachi on the front cover as well. Maybe that will appear in today's festivities. It's been great. We've chatted quite a lot on Zoom over the last few years about this book. I don't have much to add to what we wrote in the introduction, except to say I still meet people all over Japan, in Okinawa, in various places, who say they remember you from 40 years ago or something. So you obviously continue to make a big impression on people. I think I told this story when you were in Tokyo somewhere, but there's somebody in Okinawa I know who remembers you for playing tanchame in Honchoshi, which maybe you are also going to do today. So I wish I could be there for that. That's it. I'm going to try and keep it really short. So have a great time. And finally, thanks also to Gina, without whom this book almost certainly would not have appeared. So thanks, Gina, as always. Have fun.
Thank you, Matt.
Now I would like to call Sri Tan up here to make your address.
It feels strange coming to SOAS for the second time in probably 10, maybe 8 years or so, and looking back on how things have changed and how things are still the same. I'm very honored to be here and still in the care of David and Gina in so many ways. Listening to all the stories that other people have shared brought back lots of memories, but also this whole idea that David in many ways is the history of a whole a whole development in ethnomusicology in the UK, if not the discipline itself, then the community. And I really feel that it was because of David and Gina who came as part of the package, or maybe it's the other way around, that I went into ethnomusicology. I came to the UK as an undergraduate student with delusions of grandeur, thinking that I was going to be a concert pianist, and didn't know how to deal with the Eurocentrism of a college near here. I took a floater program at SOAS and discovered, oh my God, these are my people. And David was very much part of that. And the community that David had built across many different generations sustained me in ways that made me feel included. And I've been thinking about this question a lot, especially in relation to not just the changes in the past 2 years, how people talk about inclusion, about race, about multiculturalism in the UK, and how SOAS has always been a bastion of that in so many ways. And also thinking about this in terms of the passing of time and the passing of different modes, trends in thinking about music and not just ethnomusicology. So I guess I was a card-carrying ethnomusicologist, rethinking the whole ology thing now, as I am currently on research leave from Royal Holloway, where I teach, and it's a quite a different department from the music department at SOAS, but as new thinkings about music and sound studies come together and apart and together again in different climates, where the politics of, inclusion are now not just about decolonization and race, but about climate change and precarity. I'm thinking about how someone like David has, been there all these years and continue to be humble, to think about learning new things, to engage in conversations in different ways, in the ways that he can, and how I would like to be able to continue to dialogue as I look towards middle age and the midlife crisis that every other musicologist is apparently going to as they enter the age of global music studies, which I kind of feel is the new rebranding of woke ethnomusicology. So the chapter that I had contributed was on it's called 6 Provocations on Decolonization, and I kind of felt, oh no, I'm the person who's ranting a lot amidst all the other chapters, which feature a lot of fine-grained analysis or deep ethnography and great specialisms in Japanese music. And I'm just thinking about how to, keep conversations alive and to think about care and think about community and family, which is something that David and Gina and the people here have always been so committed to. And that as we march towards, very challenging times ahead, I don't know, sorry to be a downer about the state of higher education and music and a lot of aggressive recruitment of students from East Asia as if they were some kind of cash cow. And where, institutions like SOAS, how institutions like SOAS have played a part in creating different pockets of inclusive space, and how David and your extended family, including myself, have been able to thrive amidst, so many different changes, where we enter, different kinds of dialogues beyond safeguarding what some people might think of as exotic cultures of a small part of Japan, as opposed to an exotic culture of Gen Z peoples, and the kinds of challenges that they're facing. So I realized that in this room, you have got Zoomers, you've got millennials, you have Gen Xers like myself, and boomers, dare I say, and boomers, yes. And I just find it so heartening that we are able to have this exchange. I see so many faces of different colors and probably different histories. And I think, we are all here for David, and you are responsible for bringing such diversity and inclusion into this space. So I do thank you very much.
You get your chair.
I just want to, not that Gina actually really needs an introduction, but I also really, really want to thank her for her role in how the book came about. Because Matt is right. I mean, without Gina, I mean, David would have waited until he was turning 90 or something like that. So thank you very much, Gina.
I'm going to talk while the ensemble sets up down here. So, Suju, we're going to have a concert on our exit here. But anyway, since I'm part of the package, I will say a few words. David has helped me every step of my own career. He's been there for copy editing, for formatting, and, you know, always conversations about ideas and things, although he thinks archaeology is really boring. But this, I have tried to compensate for this by helping him out with his publications, and I did the indexing, copy editing and indexing for his two books here, one with Allison, another author of this book who cannot be here today, and we thank her too for her contributions. The other thing is that you know how David likes to organize people, and you know, from the moment I met him in 1972, he was dragging me into musical activities with his family, and then later at Michigan with a folk song group that he established in about 1973, and we did performances in different colleges around the Midwest. And then this folk song group here is kind of a reincarnation of that one 40 years later. So it's really nice to still have the folk song vibe going, and SOAS being the host of this.
So before the Silk and Bamboo group gets everything organized, I would just like to introduce the book. I'll just like to show you the chapters, of course, with the introduction by Matt Gillen and myself, and Hosokawa Shuhei, who's another great scholar from Japan, like Kaneshiro Atumi, who sent his video, and Alison Tokita. And so Hosokawa, Addison, and Kaneshiro are the three colleagues of David in this book. The rest of us are his PhD students. So you can say that this book is very SOAS-centric, you know, a little bit taken from David's Pinterest-centric kind of thing. So I think there's a great variety. Of course, it's quite Japan-centered as well. But as you can see, so Cherie, who just spoke, also comes with a completely different, and Amanda from Cuba. So there's a lot of different things. And so now I would actually like to give David the book. So it's your presentation. Here you are.
Thank you. I think it's a nice book.
Yeah, so David would like to say a few words.
Yes, thank you. I wrote them down so I won't talk forever, which I usually do. Of course, I'm so delighted that this Festschrift exists and was created by these former students of mine, plus contributions by scholars I'd worked with. And it's a little embarrassing because there's so many other people here, my former colleagues in music, who have not had a Festschrift written for them, even if they've retired. I hope we're going to have more Festschrifts, because all of you have been wonderful and produced nice student reactions, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. I'm not kidding. I mean that. Now, what does it say here? The three editors have drawn together a wonderful set of 10 chapters that range across the globe. And I think they were posted a minute ago. I've enjoyed reading them all, and I congratulate the authors in the expanse and expertise of their researches that contribute to so much to the field of ethnomusicology. I focus on Japan and then Southeast Asia and a few other little places, but I'm just so pleased that there are chapters here on all kinds of places, and they're just wonderful. I'm most famous for blabbing forever, but I hereby finish by giving my sincere thanks to everyone involved in this book, to everyone who's here, and those of you who have done so much career work and actually deserve further Festschrift or whatever you can give. I have to mention Richard Wittes. This is a funny thing to add. We came to England, you can tell from our accents maybe, we're from the United States. 1981, we've been in Japan 4 years, and Gina was hired over the phone to teach in Cambridge. Yeah, and so she went off to England, and I had to follow. And when I got to Cambridge, I did a little teaching in the Cambridge Music Department on world music, but there was a guy named Richard Wittes living not far from us, who was teaching in London at some place called Sosh. And I finally discovered SOAS, and it's been wonderful ever since. And the very fact that I eventually got a job here, I can't. Shut up, David, it's too long, we're way over. There's a reception waiting outside. So I hereby shut up, except I thank all of you that I've met and taught, and I see so many faces I've seen before, even if we haven't interacted a lot. It's just wonderful that you're here. And now it's time for you know what?
Not quite, not quite, not quite.
Not quite?
Not quite.
So I would just want to mention about the Festschrift, the book that I just presented. David is the only copy here, which is kind of a little bit embarrassing. But actually, it's Cambridge Scholars' fault, and we had ordered, and they should have been here long ago. They didn't arrive. So in compensation for that, instead of the 25% discount that you see on the flyers, you can actually get 50% discount as long as you write Japan 50. So don't forget that, write Japan 50. And now I would like to go on with the silk and bamboo. I will say that they are kind of, we had Tsugaru Shamisen as the walk-in music, and then and this is the walk-out music. So have a listen, and then you can go out and they will follow us. And there are going to be a little bit of drinks and nibbles, just a little bit. So thank you very much all for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And now, please, let's go outside in the foyer for the little wine and the little nibbles.